Hi guys, and welcome back to Tech Corner. My name's Picasso, and today we're going to be talking about the difference between a condenser and a dynamic microphone. One is the condenser, the other is the dynamic. So today we're going to be discussing what the difference is between these two microphones and why they might be useful in any given scenario. So up first we have the dynamic microphone. Now the dynamic microphone, first and foremost, finds its function in live music. This microphone is really suitable for capturing really strong signals, and therefore in the live scenario it proves second to none. So things like powerful vocals and really driven instruments are perfect for this type of microphone. Why is it so good for live use? Dynamic microphones work best to record loud sounds. Unlike condensers, they use a wired coil inside to amplify signals picked up by the diaphragm. So the output is considerably lower than a condenser microphone, but that's awesome when you're trying to capture a signal that's already super strong. So as you can imagine, in the live scenario, that's where performance comes alive, that's where energy is really at its highest. And so therefore, a dynamic microphone is designed to capture that in the best of ways. Dynamic microphones tend to be known for their ruggedness and their reliability. Not that I recommend it, but if you were to drop one of these, it would probably work for the rest of the gig. Whereas if you were to drop a condenser microphone, the likelihood is you could cause yourself some serious issues. Dynamic microphones need no power supplies or batteries in general, unless of course it's a wireless version, but generally speaking they require no power supply or battery. They come in at a fraction of the cost of a condenser microphone. For a decent dynamic microphone, the range tends to be anywhere between £20 and £100. What makes this microphone particularly good for live use is its smooth response to loud signal. So what this generally means is when you attack this microphone in the live scenario, it's going to cope with that energy and it's going to convert it into a really smooth output signal. The output level tends to be high enough to plug directly into most mic inputs. And of course it has an ideal signal to noise ratio. Dynamic microphones tend to be pretty good with frequency response in general. However, it tends to not focus too much on high-end frequencies. This is because generally speaking, in the live situation, these frequencies are the ones which are most likely to cause feedback. So in a live setting, the last thing that you want is to hear piercing noises which eventually cause the microphone to feed back in itself and of course cause the whole system to go wrong. They tend to be smoother on high-end frequencies, which simply means that they're just not picking them up as sensitively as perhaps something like a condenser would. Certainly a rugged and solid piece of kit. Most rappers, most singers would call this their weapon in the live scenario. Now, as good as this microphone is at capturing frequency response across the board, there is still some skill to using it. And so therefore, when you are in a live situation, there are still some microphone techniques to consider. Simple things like staying 3 to 5 inches away, not covering the cone of it as you use it, and of course, just using the microphone with a certain level of respect and stage efficacy. The good news about these microphones is that they require very little maintenance, which means that as long as you are just generally giving it some care over the years, it will last you for a very, very long time. And in fact, I'm still yet to find one of these that has just been out of commission, that hasn't just been broken. So I would suggest, as a live performer, certainly looking to invest in a dynamic microphone. So to take on that bad boy, up next we have the condenser microphone. The condenser microphone, as you may be familiar with, is far more used to an indoor recording setting. In other words, a studio. This is the most common place that you're going to find this. These microphones, of course, are used in studio capacities, podcast capacities, radio capacities, but like I've said and suggested, indoors and within a relatively contained space. The condenser microphone is generally used for delicate signals and capturing high-end frequencies, which is why they find themselves so well placed in studio scenarios. So the condenser, or capacitor microphone as it's known, is generally used in studios to pick up sounds with great detail and accuracy. This is achieved by a lightweight membrane, known as the diaphragm, suspended by a fixed plate. Sound pressure against the diaphragm causes it to move, which in turn causes an electrical output, known as our signal. So unlike the dynamic microphone, the condenser is super sensitive to high-end frequencies, which means that it would in theory be a very bad suit for live performance. Because if this microphone were to be on a stage, unfortunately it would be capturing everything on that stage. As a result of doing so, you're likely to get feedback, and if nothing else, just a lot of distortion and a lot of mess going through the one microphone. Now, a condenser requires phantom power or power supply from an external source, usually 48V. So if you've got a USB interface, or if you use an interface of any description and you can see an option to add 48V, this is exactly what it's for, to power a condenser microphone or an instrument input without its own power supply. This plus 48V essentially helps to create the characteristics of a high output. High outputs essentially characteristically include high frequencies. Now this is ideal because you won't need as much gain at the preamp level to get signal through to this microphone, meaning that it works at a usable volume quite quickly and quite easily. Working with one of these microphones in a studio can be a craft in itself. Taking the time to learn how to actually use a microphone and to get the best performance out of yourself is really something to take note of. What I recommend is going into a studio and taking the time to record your voice at different distances from the microphone and using different settings. What that's going to do is give you an idea of the best way to capture your voice. It's also going to give you an idea of how close you really need to be to this thing in order to create that intimate feel, but also what distance you need to be in order to keep clarity and to stop distortion. Unlike dynamic microphones, condensers are super sensitive, so anything that touches them is going to create a noise. Hence why, generally speaking, they're hung or encased in something that cradles them and stops them from interfering motion. So when it comes to using one of these in a studio, it's very, very important that you start to learn the technique of creating a good performance without over interacting with the microphone. Also, because of its positioning, it means that as an artist, you need to learn to control the energy around the microphone. One of the benefits of using a dynamic is that it can move with you. As you move around the stage, as you project your voice, you can start to operate the microphone like this. However, with a condenser microphone in a studio environment, it's going to be positioned. So anything that you do to come out of that immediate recording zone is going to impact your recording quality. That means that you have to learn the techniques to stay committed to your performance, meanwhile getting the best out of your microphone. So the truth of the matter is, it's not really a battle, it's just about functionality. As an artist and as a live performer, you need both of these microphones to maximize your vocals and to maximize your career. So I would suggest getting to know which one of these in which scenario suits you the best. Now, for every rule, there's a rule breaker. So there's plenty of instances where someone's used one of these to record, and there's plenty of instances where someone's used one of these in a live capacity. So it's really about learning the microphone itself, learning what its true qualities are and what it delivers, and what that means to you as an artist. My recommendation is that you just spend time with any microphone that you're going to be using in any scenario to make sure that you can get the best out of your vocals, because after all, that's generally what they're for. So that's it for today, guys. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Picasso. Have a great week. See you next time.